On TV, on radio, and on your smartphone. This is Talk TV.
Good evening, Britain, and welcome to the Independent Republic of JJ and Nisiobi. I'll be holding the fort whilst Mike takes a well-earned break. And it's all kicking off tonight on the show as we've got plenty of action for you. First up, more drama for Labour as the Shadow Deputy Prime Minister has a police investigation into her council house claims reopened. Plus, we're on Migrant Watch as it's revealed a record number of people crossed the Channel in the first 3 months of 2024. And find out why I am absolutely furious over a woke rebrand of Cadbury's chocolates. This is the Independent Republic. I'm the new dictator. Let's start the show. A record 4,644 migrants have crossed the English Channel in the first 3 months of the year, with 338 arrivals detected yesterday alone. But it's not just the number of people arriving that's drawing criticism, but the fact that criminals are being granted asylum here in the UK. Images of Clapham chemical attacker Abdul Azili being baptised have been circulating. He was allowed to stay in the UK after he claimed he'd converted to Christianity despite being convicted of sexual assault. Right, now, let's bring in my war cabinet. Journalist Eve Torfik, Director of Communications at the Henry Jackson Society, Megan Guitos, and barrister and loudmouth Andrew Eborn. Now, look, the three of you, this is my show, this is my republic now. When you greet me, I want to salute. Now, thank you.
Absolutely.
There you go, Eborn. Thank you.
Eborn's there.
Thank
Congratulations on the coup, JJ.
It's been a very successful one. I could.
Yeah.
Finally, I got rid of the concrete grower. Anyway, let's start with you. Let's start with you, Eborn.
Yes.
Ezidi.
Yes.
How did he manage to game the system so easily?
It is, well, you say gaming the system. This is the thing. And we've got to separate those who are entitled to be here and the justifiable reasons and those who basically, as you say, game the system.
Yeah.
And this is talking about abuse. And when there's been abuse, when people pretend to convert to Christianity, which is what happened here, and it was very clear that he pretended, because he surrounded himself with his old non-Christian mates and so on and so forth.
Well, Christians can have non-Christian friends.
Like occasionally, but they said...
Occasionally?
Not on a Sunday. No, but you're right. But apparently, to everybody, they all knew it's just a big joke. And nobody believed in his whole sort of side that he was a Christian. So it was an abuse of the system. So that's the principle. So is the system right? If it's right, that's fine. If it's being abused, then call out the abuse. And this was an abuse and it should be called out.
Eborn, I mean, I'm still stuck on the part of you saying Christians can't be friends with non-Christians.
I didn't say Christians.
That's basically what you say. That's basically you know what, I'm going to go to Eve. Do you think he gamed the system properly, or do you think maybe he did convert to Christianity because he really believed that he'd found the light in Jesus Christ, and then afterwards he was like, actually, this ain't all it's cracked up to be?
That is a slight possibility, but I'm not really buying it. And I also think this is reflective of the church's desperation to recruit people. You know, you see them now very accepting. Before it was a bit more discerning who could join the church, and now it's, you know, a free-for-all. And I think that's very demonstrative in what's happened here.
Well, Megan, I don't understand this because I'm a Catholic. When I wanted to get married, I had to go through months of rehearsals and lessons with my local priest. This guy took, they call it an alpha course, which takes like a couple, 2-3 weeks. You can even do it faster than that if you do it every day. And then suddenly, this reverend was like, no, yeah, I completely buy it. So
but the issue I have here is more the sexual assault conviction, that it really was that easy for him. And we have to have some red lines. And right now, our system doesn't have any.
So that's the point, though, isn't it? So there's two things saying, look, what do the rules currently say and what's an abuse of the rules? So going back to your very starting point, if he were a Christian, it's appalling the persecutions that happen to Christians and others around the world, and we need to guard against that. The fact that a convicted sex offender could still get the relevant permissions is something they need to look at and call out. So the one thing is look at the system at the moment, check the rules and make sure they're stable. And if they're not stable, deal with those, and then work out the abuses and deal with that as well.
So it's strange that the Home Office judges were not aware of his sex offending. When he had the second appeal, they didn't mention at all that he'd been previously done for sexual assault and flashing. It was just so. Is it the Home Office that is really the problem here, or should this church, Reverend Roy Merrin, is the one who's spoken in his defence?
It's very simple. It's a question that says, do the laws currently as they stand stack up? And if they'd known that information, would it have made a difference? If it would have made a difference, then clearly the rules are right at the moment. If it doesn't make a difference, then the rules need to be changed. Looking at the other side and about claiming to be a Christian, and whether that's true or not, we need to make sure that the mischief that's being guarded against, which is persecution around the world, is properly enforced. And you basically look at that and say, if they are genuinely Christian, then absolutely that's the reason that safeguard is put in place. And we need to make sure that that stays in place, but is not abused.
Both my parents were migrants to this country.
Same here.
Yeah.
Well, my father was.
The only downside for them is that I'm still here now. That's a big problem for this country. Eborn.
Yes.
480 million quid was that Anglo-French deal.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy.
We got more cops on the beaches, up to 800
I
cops
tell you, it's
patrolling.
complete nonsense, isn't it? And Rwanda's become a nasty word and so on and so forth. And it's Abraham Lincoln who said that if you count the tail of a dog as a leg, how many legs does a dog have? And the answer is still 4, because just because you call it a leg doesn't make a tail so. That's the same with Rwanda about it being safe, and that's what the whole thing about changing the law is. But you need to look at the statistics. Rwanda itself can only handle 200 people, is what they say at the moment.
Yeah.
And the FT estimated last week it's about 250,000 per person.
Yeah.
So it's completely wrong. As I always say, the focus should be on the abhorrent practices of the people traffickers. What we need to look at is to stop that appalling trade. Stop making it attractive to come over, but also work on a PR campaign. And I think they've started to do this to tell people, not only is it not safe, but your money's not going to be worthwhile on that sort of basis. If you can tell us about who these people traffickers are, we can do something with it. But what we need to do, JJ, is put it into perspective. The figures last year, looking at the government website, forget the 200, forget the tens of thousands of people who are coming on boats. There were 3.3 million visas granted in the year to June 2023. And of those, about 538,887 were work visas, and 657,000 were study visas. So we need to look at the whole picture when we're looking at migration and net migration. We need a certain amount for the workforce to make that make sense, but we need to look at the whole picture. And what I love about this show, especially when Mike does it and you do it as well so brilliantly, is we always shine more light and less heat on the subject. Let's look at the figures, let's work out whether there's been an abuse, but let's target the real issue, which are the abhorrent people traffickers.
Well, thanks for the statistics there, you nerd.
I think this is good. And I had them all memorised, you see. I do my homework for this brilliant show.
Megan, the government have been doing adverts in Vietnam to try and stop at the source. We know they're doing adverts on social media, on TikTok, to try and say, if you come to the UK, it's not going to be a bed of roses for you. Is that going to work? Are people going to pay any attention to that, really?
I'm not sure. I really don't know. You have to look at the wider context. That's where people are being advertised to on social media platforms and sites like Gumtree, not the exact one, sorry for saying the brand name, but like a kind of similar one in
Tomorrow
Vietnam.
Public, say what you want here.
You know, and it's people are being advertised to by people traffickers themselves on TikTok, and it is a really inexpensive way to get out information. And it seems silly, a government advertising that, you know, you're not going to be treated very nicely, you will be sent back. But what else is there, really?
Eve, are we beholden by our own great laws and long history? Because if you go to Pakistan, they just deported about 500,000 Afghanistani refugees, and they just said we've had like several terrorist attacks, some perpetrated, some done by Afghan refugees. So now you're all going, and they are just rounding people up. Even Afghans who've been born there now, being rounded up and sent back.
See, I think that's abhorrent. I don't agree with that at all. I think that's when you are born in a country and raised in the laws and ways of that country, I don't think you should be sent back like, you know, like a sheep or something. I don't think that's okay. I also think the whole TikTok campaign, the demographic, are they looking at these videos? A significant amount of money has gone into it. Not a huge amount, but significant. That could have probably gone to something better. And I don't think they're consuming these videos and go, oh, I better not come then. You know, these people are in really difficult situations. They're being trafficked. They're maybe in a war zone. They may be in gangs. And, you know, the idea, oh, well, we might get sent back. Well, I'll take the gamble.
Of course, I wasn't saying they won't take the gamble, but trafficking often involves a lot of lying. And so when they're being advertised to on TikTok, And when I say inexpensive way to get out, I mean on the grand scheme of things in terms of government money.
Yeah, definitely.
It is a tiny amount of money. Obviously, if you're a start-up company, makeup company, you're not going to spend that initial money on an advertising campaign. But this is where they're consuming information, and where else are they going to hear from the British government?
Well,
and people traffickers lie. That's the thing. They're being lied to, and.
But then, as Eborn says, we've got to target them first. Listen, Cabinet. Take a break. You'll be back with me a little bit later. You are watching the Independent Republic of JJ and Ethiopia. After the break, Britain's secret courts are prosecuting vulnerable people behind closed doors, while trials by jury could be a thing of the past. More on this after the break. Welcome back. You're watching the Independent Republic of JJ and Ethiopia. Trial by jury could be a thing of the past for some offences if one of the country's top judges has their way. Baroness Carr of Walton-on-the-Hill, the Lady Chief Justice, said scrutiny is required to deal with the 66,500 cases stacked up in the courts post-COVID. Her comments have drawn a strong reaction, though, with fears the move would undermine the justice system. It comes as the scandal of the single justice procedure in courts grows, with hundreds of thousands of people being prosecuted for motoring offences and not paying their TV licences without a proper court hearing. Joining me now to discuss all of this is Andrew Eborn, barrister and broadcaster. Andrew, first of all, what is single justice procedure?
Very simple.
Because we don't have it here. In the Independent Republic, we don't have that kind of thing.
You don't have any laws.
No laws.
No laws.
What I say is law.
I totally understand that, JJ, which is why you call me Eborn.
That's right.
To boarding school. What it basically is, it's to speed up the whole process. So it's like simple things, such as if you don't pay your TV licence, you get a fine for doing that. If they're minor traffic things. So the idea is for when it's that you don't have to turn up to court to defend yourself. The problem with the system is that some people are vulnerable. They might have really good reasons why they haven't done it. For example, if there's somebody with a particular disability, or they're being abused at home or whatever, you've had all sorts of situations like that, which could be a plea in mitigation. And if you're not there to make the plea in mitigation, it means that you'll be convicted in any event. So the difficulty is exactly that. They're turning around and saying there are people who would otherwise maybe get off or a more lenient sentence are not being represented in court, and as a result, the penalties are too severe.
Well, as my personal legal advisor, how would you reform the system?
First thing I'll do is send an invoice to you in the post as your personal legal advisor. You haven't paid any of the other ones. No chance of that. What would I do? I mean, the basic principle is this, JJ. Justice is not just to be done, but to be seen to be done.
Yeah.
So we have horrible backlogs in courts at the moment. So the way that you can speed it up has got to be a good thing. But at the same time, the jury system, which is what you started on in your brilliant monologue at the beginning, the jury system, as your personal lawyer, I can say that. The jury system basically said it's a fundamental human right to be tried by your peers for certain things. And you have some types of cases, smaller cases can be decided by magistrates, but other cases you have a choice. You can either have it decided by a magistrate or you can go to the Crown Court. And a lot of people opt to have a trial by jury because they think you're more likely to get off.
But is that more expensive, having a trial by jury?
Well, it takes longer, and this is why there's this big backlog, because you've got to get the right jurors and so on and so forth. You have to obviously pay lawyers to do that sort of stuff.
So just scrap it then?
Well, this is what is being proposed on that sort of basis.
I support it. I agree with that. Get rid of it.
Then scrap all laws. Everybody's guilty. Just save time. Take all their assets. You can work on that
seize
basis.
them.
Well, this is a fundamental principle of law, is that you've got the right to be tried by your peers. And it goes back to zillions of years. It's one of the cornerstones of the legal system here. But in the Republic, I think you're right. Just confiscate all their assets and you're covered.
If we change the law, and we say, when we change the law and we say no more trial by jury for some cases, that's not going to really undermine the justice system, is it?
Well, people want the right to be tried by their peers. That is the fundamental point of the...
Over what? Over not paying your car fine?
Oh, no, that's different. Those would never be tried by jury.
Right.
So there's two separate things. One of these small cases, which is like TV licence or driving fines, where you don't have to turn up to court and they can basically just deal with with in your absence.
If I don't pay my TV licence,
yes,
which I don't think we should pay it anyway, to be honest, that's a different...
Don't encourage people to commit criminal offences. As your lawyer, I advise you otherwise. Yes.
If I don't pay it and I get summons to court, and I have to say to the court, I'd like to be tried by jury, or that's not an option?
No, that would never happen. That would
right.
It's not
so
one of those offences.
What small cases are likely to have me
it
say...
might be theft or whatever it is. It was
why suggest theft to me?
Oh, I'm not suggesting...
Why you picked a random crime, theft?
Well, what crimes do you want? I don't come in with a tooth-drag salesman. Pick a crime, any crime at all. You asked about it. So the small crimes is to deal with very quickly. So we have different systems. You have the Magistrates' Court, which tend to hear smaller crimes, and the Crown Court, which hear bigger crimes, in essence. Things like not paying a TV licence, things like driving fines are all dealt with by magistrates, and that's the procedure for speeding it up. But as I say, the difficulty, the abuse of the system, if you like, is it's not making more vulnerable people who might have a cause in mitigation where you can get a reduced sentence. Those particular cases are not being heard in the right way, and this is what they're objecting to. And the separate thing is about trial by jury, and what's being suggested is that some cases could be heard just by the judges instead of trial by jury, because it would speed up the backlog.
Or by the dictator in charge.
Or by the dictator, but everybody's guilty, as you said.
That's it.
Guilty, give me all your assets.
That's
what
it.
you said.
But we have a massive backlog.
Yes, and that's the problem.
Yeah, so then how do we get through that? To me, this seems like a great idea to get through that backlog very quickly.
Well, as you know, I speak around the world as a futurist, back to the futurist, about artificial intelligence and how that can decide a lot of cases. Oh, no, it does.
I don't want robots deciding my future.
Well, but they are going to decide your future, whether you like it or not.
Well, I don't like it.
Well, I know, we're tough, because they will. And I always say that AI is our greatest human achievement, but also the biggest existential threat. And when I speak around the world advising companies about these sort of things, you have to understand what it can do. And a lot of legal systems, what they're doing, they're helping with the backlog, helping with the administration, helping decide cases, and the advantages for that, it does speed up the system.
But Eborn, all I ever hear about these days is Russia have got into this technology this way, and China are going through your data. What's to stop any of these big evil superpowers manipulating the robots and saying, yeah, these guys are all guilty, and actually these criminals and these terrorists not guilty? So, and it's sorted.
And you're absolutely right. We have to be absolutely aware of what the systems can do and be aware of the abuse. It's one of the biggest discussions at the moment. Data, as I said for years, is the new currency. The more information you give about it, if a product's free, you are the product.
Yeah.
And so when you're signing up and saying, this is one of my birthdays, here's my favourite colour, here's the name of my child who fell off a bike, all that sort of stuff, you tell them they're going to get all that information and use it. Yeah. And this is why people are worried about things like TikTok. And the big debate at the moment is who is going to get this data and what can they do with that data?
Well, with robots and the juries, what would you rather? Be judged by the robots or judged by the jury?
Well, I'm not guilty of anything, so I don't need to be judged.
I'll be judge of that, mate.
Thank you. No, the reality is this, and this is what robots have got a bad rap. And I will be... I am the
Terminator.
No, but that's the bad side of it. You look at things, for example, like what Elon's doing with the brain thing, where you can have implants in the brain, and you get people who've been paralysed for years, and all of a sudden you're getting seismic advances in technology are curing that sort of
that's great. What's that got to do with whether I pay my TV licence, mate?
Well, no, but you're talking about a system. You're talking about making...
Yes,
the other
and I'm saying, is it better for us to be judging crimes off robots who can be programmed and are going to have faults because they're created by man, or a jury of 12 of our peers?
Who could be programmed by man even more so, and even greater influence. Now, what you need is safeguards. So the important thing is getting those guardrails in place. And actually, a robot is less likely to be manipulated than a human. And I've been in court. I mean, you've worked on that sort of basis. Yeah. Sometimes your best advocate is what decides the case. And you work on that sort of principle. AI will get rid of the impartiality. It will make sure there's consistency.
No, it won't.
Absolutely.
It's already got inbuilt biases already from man.
But this is what they're doing. They're correcting those biases. If you understand what those are, you can build in the safeguards. So you're more likely to have consistency of judgment and work on that premise.
Well, when will this happen? In my lifetime, I've got about 50 years left, I reckon, on this planet.
I reckon, yes, it won't be on this planet. You'll be on another planet in 50 years. You'll be exploring Mars.
So when do you think we're going to have robots deciding cases?
And they're already deciding it.
So Where? In what banana republic?
Well, no, in China and various other places, they're speeding things up, but they are. And the efficiency being introduced right now, right here, right now, are tremendous. So we should look at that. Also, I mean, it's bizarre as well. Some of these legal cases, the trouble is lawyers are relying too much on it. And I'll give you an example. In the States, what happened? There was a case, a negligence case, about somebody who was injured by one of these trolleys on an airline. And, you know, they're coming down, peanuts for everybody, even if you're allergic. They give you peanuts. And what happened? They got banged on the knee. And the lawyer in the States, they looked up the case, they tapped into ChatGPT, give me some precedents, and they got 3 cases, which sounded brilliant. This airline against that person, all the cases were won. So they quoted it in the court. The trouble is, ChatGPT had made all the cases. Right. And the judge said to them, I'm sorry, Mr. JJ, none of these cases are true. And so the person was held to be in contempt of court and so on and so forth as a result of it. So ChatGPT and other programs, they hallucinate. This is what they called. If they don't know the answer, they will hallucinate and come up with an appropriate answer.
Right, so you said that China. I asked you the question, who's got the robots working on the case? You said China. Is there any country that's actually a democracy?
It's happening as well in the States as well. That's a democracy. Last time I checked.
That's a place where people had to carry guns and shoot alligators and stuff. I'm not taking them for anything.
America would say they're a democracy. Absolutely. And I think if you look on that sort of way, but also in this country, we're bringing in efficiencies in the courtrooms as we speak to make it more efficient. So you're using AI to basically get rid of those laborious tasks to make sure you can get people tried a lot quicker. So in answer to your question, how do we make it more efficient? My answer is I'm here to bring the AI into Britain. And I think AI is absolutely the solution.
I think that is a terrible idea. Eborn, get back to the cabinet room. I'll speak to you later. Right, you are watching the Independent Republic of JJ and this is and after the break, we take a look at the dire state of military affairs in Britain. That's according to experts who said we would last only 2 months in an all-out war with Russia. You don't want to miss this. Welcome back. You're watching the Independent Republic of JJ and Nisiobi. Police are to look again at claims Labour Deputy Leader Angela Rayner broke the law when previously living between 2 ex-council houses. A detective chief inspector at Greater Manchester Police promised to review and reassess following an initial decision that there was no evidence of any offences. Miss Rayner has faced weeks of scrutiny over her living arrangements in the 2010s following her marriage to Mark Rayner. Now, my war cabinet are back with me, Eve, Megan and Andrew. Megan, what has Angela Rayner actually been accused of? I'm confused by this story.
So she's been accused, as far as I understand it, of buying her council home and then not living in it, selling it, living with her husband and then selling it, I believe, at profit, which is not something you're really allowed to do. The rules confuse me as I've never owned a home.
OK.
But, yeah, she's denied it. She said when she married her husband, they then lived separately, but the opposite is... she's being accused of the opposite being true. I do believe that if she has broken these rules, then she's bought a house. I think the issue is she's bought a house at way below market rate.
OK. Eborn?
I'll tell you what it is.
Eborn.
Pay attention, Eborn. I'll tell you what's going to happen.
At ease.
I'm always at ease.
Yeah, you would know. You should have gone to him.
I should have gone to the lawyer.
You should have gone to the lawyer.
He's a lawyer.
I love it. We can sort of guess what she's accused of. We'll just make up the offence, whatever happens.
Because the reason why I was... I think... I don't want to get sued.
Megan, you did a fantastic job.
You did a fantastic
job. Now, let's go to the real legal...
Do you remember that thing? It was not Call My Bluff, wasn't it? It wasn't that one.
She's far too young for that.
I don't want to get it wrong and get sued.
You won't get sued for having an opinion.
MP James Daly, he asked the Greater Manchester Police to examine claims that Labour's Deputy Leader did not declare her main residence accurately. And this is what they're sort of looking at. So they have rules and regulations about what you can declare and so on and so forth. It is going through the process, so we have to be careful. You're right. Everybody's entitled to a fair trial. Even Angela Rayner's entitled to a fair trial. So that's exactly basically it. So they need to look at... So police are reviewing the decision not to investigate her over claims she might have broken the relevant electoral law. So they're reviewing it at the moment. The jury's still out, and until that's happened, it's very difficult for us to comment.
Yeah, Eve, do you think people really care? I really could not give a monkeys.
I think this is a way to make her, because it's a council house, I think this is a way to make her look, you know, very fiendish and money-grubbing. But ultimately, could you say you wouldn't do the same if you had an opportunity, you had 2 houses, you could make a good profit on one?
Yes,
would you not?
I categorically can say I would never do that. I'm not a fiend. I'm a dictator, but I'm certainly not a fiend. OK, would you do it?
I can't comment because I'm not a homeowner, but I wouldn't say no.
OK.
To making, I mean, being on the property ladder is one of the few ways you can actually get fairly wealthy in this country.
I think the problem is, this is where I gather, this is what my problem is with the story. Council houses are in short supply. They've always been in short supply. And, you know, right to buy has been criticised by Labour for this very reason. And, you know, the whole fat cat of it all.
Yeah.
It just doesn't look good.
I've no doubt if this was a
And I
Tory
actually
MP...
like... Yeah, exactly.
If it was a Tory MP, Labour would be saying,
Angela Rayner.
you've got to step down, you've got to resign, we're calling for your head, 100%.
Yeah,
You're
and that's the problem.
Yeah.
What's interesting as well, I mean, she's obviously denied any wrongdoing, which is why we, in the interest of balance and fairness, we have to say that's the case. They need to look at it. What I always say is that justice is blind. So what we need to do is work on that basis. It's irrelevant that the guy's a Tory MP complaining about Angela Rayner, but they made that point. The fact is there should be rules for everybody, and they should be investigated. And my concern is that we shouldn't sort of just make it political. It should turn around and say, this is what the law says. The law says we have to investigate it. Let's see what happens. Go through the due process. You'll have your chance to defend yourself. Don't have a trial in the media. That's what I would say.
Absolutely. Well, things are looking, I think, better for the Tory party. Jonathan Gullies has been named as the one of the new deputy chairs.
Yep.
I mean, no one knew about this guy before he came on Talk TV, if I'm honest with you.
You made the guy. You made him.
We basically made Gullies, and I've been calling him all day, and he's not answered any of my phone calls. So he's going to get a very nasty voice note from me.
I think that's for his career ruined.
That's it. He's going to fall down faster than he climbed up. But, Eve, I think this is a good signing, so to speak, for the Tories.
Yeah, they've signed on a good player.
Yeah.
I'm not sure one good signing can really erase the...
14 years.
Yeah, and also the failures with how they've rolled out the budget, the way they're trying to sort of split their appeal down the middle in order to, you know, please voters. I think they've done a lot of U-turns on their character as a party, and I don't necessarily think this will spell out good news for them.
I think it should be good. But is this simply happening because Lee Anderson left and went to Reform and they didn't want Jonathan Gullies, who I think is pretty popular with his constituents?
Yes.
Is that why this has been done?
I'm not sure about the issue would be that they didn't want to, you know, lose him to Reform. I think it's more about, you touched on it really, about getting another Lee Anderson character in. And as
you say that with a glint in your eye that you're not happy about this.
No,
like it's a bad idea to have someone who connects with the people.
No. Actually, you read my face completely wrong. Look, I think it's actually a good idea. I think they're just, as you say, you made him. So he was a bit of an unknown character, and I think, and it's kind of how the general public got to know Lee Anderson as well. And he is kind of a free speaker and a little bit of a baller. So I think the public are going to warm to him. Do I think it's going to change anything? No, ultimately not.
Eborn, for Gullies, Eborn, my legal advisor. For Gullies personally,
yes.
Once you get in the cabinet or in a deputy position, it raised your popularity.
And having, as I say, you made him, so well done you. And I think the reality is this: there will be lots of checks in the post. What's going to happen? There are going to be lots of characters. It's going to be fascinating. You couldn't write this stuff. Fact is stranger than fiction. What's going to happen? The Conservatives are not going to do as badly as people predict. There's going to be lots of things which are going to turn around. And Rishi's 5-point pledge, more and more of it will come into reality. I always talk about inflation. That was an easy one when it was 11%. So you get to halve it. I can tell you, be closer to 2 by the time they get the election, which will be in October. I can predict that as well.
It's been a long time.
It's going to be a long time.
It's been at 2%.
Absolutely. So it's going to be very simple on that sort of basis. But you're going to get characters. People like characters with convictions. And people can turn around and say, look, we know, relate to the people of the electorate. And this is what's going to happen. People forget that Boris used to be the Carlsberg of politicians. He reached part of the electorate that other politicians couldn't reach. He then turned into this Marmite character, which people love or hate. But that's what you need. You need a politician who can reach and genuinely understand the concerns of this country.
But these politicians that are being, you know, these populist politicians, they often do start out their political career as very likeable and very relatable, but I find it's a certain brand of chauvinism, like relatable chauvinism, if that makes sense.
It becomes their Achilles heel, and you know, when Boris was loved by the public, and he's a great campaigner, and it was very fun when he was London mayor and he was bumbling about the town.
Buses, you know.
But then we put him in the biggest office of state, and it stopped being funny. Yeah. And that's so you're right there. And Boris's Achilles heel was his popularity, and he let that get the best of him, and he made bad decisions because of it, because he was so used to, he couldn't cope with people not liking him.
Yeah, well, that's human nature. When JJ and I get asked to stand, which happens virtually daily, we turn around and say we'd rather have these platforms and actually make sure that we talk about the issues that people care about. That's so important.
I will never stand.
Why not?
Because I'm the dictator of this republic. I don't need to stand. I'm already in power.
And I stand for nothing.
Jonathan Gullies did tell me a little while ago that in his constituency, North Stoke-on-Trent, potholes, local transport and jobs were the most important things.
Yes.
Like immigration, it was those things. And the NHS, which, oddly enough, is what we're moving on to next. Because public satisfaction with the NHS has dropped. It has dropped to an all-time low. Fewer than a quarter of Brits said they were satisfied with the health service in 2023 in a British social attitudes poll. Eve, are you satisfied with the NHS? Why are you rubbing your hands together with the police? I said the NHS, no one likes the NHS, and Eve goes,
No, I'm ready to take aim.
All right, shoot. I'll let you land, as the kids say.
Right, to be fair, at the point of emergency care, I think the NHS is fantastic. I think the nurses and doctors work very hard. I think GPs work hard as well. In terms of getting diagnosis and further treatment, the wait times are ridiculous. I know they said today that it has been reduced, the wait times are lesser, but overall there is this sense of dissatisfaction. More people are turning private. A lot of GPs are now referring people for, outsourcing to private doctors for sort of elective operations and things. And I think it just needs a rehaul. I think that the fabric of the NHS has been ripped up. I think people are dissatisfied. A lot of people are leaving. And the people that are there have worked very hard. And I don't think they're appreciated enough.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. Megan, has our perception of the NHS changed? Because essentially, it used to be, I think it's been seen generally by the public as Labour are the party who are always going to defend the NHS and stick up for them, and the Tories are the ones who are going to take away the money. But actually, people are starting to realise the NHS is not perfect. And even Wes Streeting, who's probably going to be the next Health Secretary, is saying throwing buckets of money at it is not the solution anymore.
I was actually going to raise Wes Streeting because I'm...
I read your mind.
Yeah.
What a great dictator.
I really respect him saying he's not going to have a campaign pretending to be one of those politicians that's going to save the NHS, because it's simply not possible. Not to sound like a lefty hippie, but I think something that we do have is the legalisation of marijuana and fast-tracking that. I think it has been proven in the United States to be great for many health ailments where we're using expensive drugs to treat that don't always work. So I just wanted to plug that here. However, it's a bureaucratic money pit, and people always say, oh, where's that extra 350 million quid that we were promised with Brexit? We've had it, and we've had more than that a week, and it's still not getting any better. And Labour have said doctors' salaries are not going to improve, junior doctors' salaries are not going to improve. The Tories have said it's not going to improve from where they are. So I know that the NHS is a religion, but the strikes, we have to just get real and say the strikes aren't helping. Yeah. They're really not helping it. Of course, we're not going to reduce. And everyone says, oh, we just need to fund it more. No, funding it more is not going to get us out of the situation. I, of course, want it free on the point of, emergency. I don't know what the answer is.
Maybe a system like France, where you pay a small fee at the point of, and it will lessen people just going to A&E and stuff just for, I don't know,
Because
they've looked at that around around the world. Well,
Yeah.
what's bizarre, though, you only have to look back not so far when people were standing on their doorsteps clapping the NHS for all the stuff that they've done.
Yeah.
And actually, if you look around the world at the different systems that are in place, healthcare for everybody at the point of entry has to be right. You have to make sure. And you see some countries where people, the first thing they do is pat you down and see if you've got a card, which can't be right. You have to make sure that we have healthcare for everybody, but we need to make sure it's efficient. And one of the solutions, as I always talk about, is artificial intelligence will help maximise. It will. And I'll tell you what.
This crazy futurist. Who let him in?
It's not only the futurist, it's telling you now. So I can tell you, chatting to ChatGPT is more effective than chatting to your GP because it has more. They did a survey in the University of California, San Diego.
And
they did a survey and they said it was more empathetic, had more time and more accurate. That's what happened. That's the future.
Not with my nurses, no. Look, let's move on to another British institution, the Uxbridge boat race.
Oh, I love it.
It's been slapped with a warning. One of you three, tell me what's going on.
I'll tell you what's going on. It's the Thames. The Thames, which used to be gloriously full of fish. And you could go, it was true, you could get your salmon in there, you get your eels and everything else. They're now so worried about how polluted it is that they're advising rowers that if you've got a sore on you or anything, you better cover it up. You better not go and drink the water if it gets in your mouth because you'll get all these horrible diseases.
This isn't new, though. Do you remember, what's his name? David Baddiel?
Yeah.
David Baddiel. Remember him? Of course, that showbiz.
From Matt Lucas's partner.
Well, that was the other.
David Williams.
Yes,
he went
used to swim.
swimming in the Thames and got sick.
Yes.
A lot of people are getting like really disturbing diseases from going into the Thames.
Why are people going to the Thames?
Yes.
Why are you doing
drunk
that for?
students.
Right.
Drunk students and the like. Don't ask how I know that. But yeah, so I think this isn't new, that rivers contain diseases. I think that's probably been the same since, Tudor times. Obviously,
worse than Tudor
millions of tons of
JJ
sewage was dumped into our water system last year. And that is terrifying to think. Like, people go swimming in the sea. That's where it filters all out to, and people go swimming there.
Sewage in our rivers.
It's disgusting.
You might say we've got quite the POO DUNNIT.
Hey, look at you with the puns. Can I say the puns tonight have been brilliant? I like the and people all credit to those in the gallery. With things like border fast that people missed at the beginning, which is one of my favourites. So that's an old Banksy line. Yeah. And I love Poo-demic and whatever it is.
POO DUNNIT.
POO DUNNIT.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
Always a thrill.
Harley Jones is a fantastic producer. But on a very serious note, XL Seagulls, or XL Gullies, as they're being called.
In Liverpool.
What are they feeding them up there? So what's the story?
Oh, I'll tell you the story. It's very simple. If you go to any seaside... I know all these stories. You go to any seaside resort, they will tell you that one of the biggest dangers when you're having your chips on the end of the pier, which we like to do every Saturday...
Of course.
You go there, the seagulls will come in and take them. What they've got, because Liverpool does things much bigger and better than anybody else, they have now XL seagulls, which are terrifying. They are terrifying. Alfred Hitchcock, eat your heart out. They are terrifying the locals.
It's the
and this is what happened.
XL rats in Luton as well. I think it's the steady British diet that is causing these monstrosities. Seagulls and rats on steroids. But they can eat... wasn't there a case where a seagull swooped down and picked up somebody's dog and dropped it?
If there's too many seagulls...
I've seen... There's that... Oh, sorry for interrupting.
No, it's fine.
I know you're the dictator.
I am a fair dictator.
I know
you may speak.
There is a video that went viral a while ago of a seagull eating a rat, swallowing it whole in the UK.
Oh.
My life has never been as good since before I watched that.
Maybe we could just call some of these seagulls if they're too big.
Call the girls.
You might... Oh, look, here's a video of a seagull.
Here's the seagull. Look at that.
The seagull literally walked into the shop, helped himself to a packet of crisps and flew off.
Quite right too.
Shoplifting is just going crazy in this country, isn't it?
The birds. Absolutely. There he is. Look at him go.
It's
come on, that's quite good.
Are they... What brand is that? That's the posh
What brand is that? You can't mention that unless they sponsor us.
Well, look, let's stick with animals.
Then.
Tell me about this hedgehog.
I'll tell you about the hedgehog.
No, not you. Not you. Quiet, Eborn. Eve, I want you to tell me about the hedgehog. You don't know about the hedgehog, do you? No. Megan, do you know about the hedgehog?
Yes. I do.
It's like question time.
Yes.
It's really scary. It's actually really alarming. I do know. Yes, the top of someone's hat was nursed to health overnight by...
Thank goodness.
A somewhat, I'm assuming, blinding woman. It seems like she might may need glasses.
That's kind of wholesome.
It's very wholesome.
So this woman, she nursed what she thought was a baby hedgehog all night. And then in the morning, she found out, actually, it's just a bubble off the hat.
Yes.
It was. But it did look very realistic. And the thing that went all over the media, there's the picture of this dog food or whatever hedgehogs eat, and there's this picture of this pom-pom hat. And I think you probably see it there. But what happens then, everybody, as a result of it, started telling their own stories. And you had people who were driving onto school, and some of their children were crying because they saw a hedgehog. There was one particular guy who stopped the car, and everybody sort of applauded him. And he went up to this thing, and he realised when he approached it, and all the traffic had stopped, that it was actually horse manure. But because everybody was watching him, he then scooped it up.
Right,
and he threw it into the
that is enough horse manure out of your mouth. Enough.
True.
My cabinet, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You are watching The Independent Republic of JJ and Isiobi. And after the break, fresh off the press, we've got the very best of tomorrow's news tonight. Stay right there.
Hey, very good morning to you.
Thanks for joining us.
You're with Talk TV, on radio, online.
And we're on your smart speaker.
Now, you ain't going to have an Eve it, me old Chinas, but a new report is calling for a new definition of cockney.
All right, Jeremy, me old China.
All right,
Rosie,
son.
oi, oi, treacle.
When J.K. Rowling says, let's just be honest, that's all she's saying, let's just be honest. When a man goes out and kills, we should talk about them as what they are, a biological man. Trans woman, it's not a woman. Trans woman is a man.
Lee would have to go much further than his statement. I mean, he did say that he spoke clumsily and he understood the Prime Minister's position, but I think he'd need to say that he'd got it wrong.
Then I had a phone call this morning from City Council, a lovely woman called Anna. And yeah, I've just received an email just saying that, yeah, I'm going to be getting a badge.
Quite right too.
It's that time again to get the violins out. That's right. Prince Harry has lost his bid for UK security after moaning he'd been singled out.
You might as well be discussing an invasion of Daleks for all I really get this. but I am now on social media, having been dragged off my £8 Nokia, reluctantly kicking and screaming. I'm a huge hit on Instagram, as you probably know.
What are you doing? I was just about to do it.
Ooh! It's Carry On. What just happened?
Whoa, listen.
There was a suggestion by some that maybe it would be nice to put a statue of the Queen on the fourth blimp. Mr. Khan apparently wasn't too keen on that.
I'm sorry. I know what's coming and I can't stop laughing.
So he suggested alternatives. There's a sweet potato.
That's quite a small statue then. Wasn't there also a prostitute?
A trans sex worker.
You don't really need one of those in Trafalgar Square. You just got to walk up to Soho. So
Why do you know this?
Because I know everything.
Was he just unlucky getting that question with an ice cream, or is it a sign of something more?
Seemed like he was on a late-night show to attract a young demographic, and they put him in an ice cream store.
I read the statement this morning from the family, and if any police officer reads that statement, if you don't cry for what you read from what the family is saying, it's heartbreaking, then you shouldn't be a police officer.
The UK, I'd say, has lots of racism within it. I don't necessarily think it's a racist country, but it permeates our institutions.
Yeah, but for her to say, come out and vote, and by the way, when I was 22 years old and I had an affair with a married man that I knew was married, the feminists failed me. I'm sorry.
I think the feminists did fail her. It was another era.
She was 22. We're supposed to have moved on from that. Don't hark back on something you did that was wrong.
Talk TV. It's the only place where you get the truth.
Welcome back to the Independent Republic of JJ and Isiobi. Let's look at some other stories from tomorrow's papers now. And I am joined by my magnificent cabinet. Come on. At ease, cabinet, at ease. It's been a long day. It's been a very long day. Now, we're going to start with the front page of The Sun. Another terrible story, such sad news. Eborn, do you want to talk us through this?
No, it's really, really sad. Those who are fans of Gogglebox will know George, Gilby, who's only 40, and the tragic news that we've just had is that he's fallen to his death. And the shocking news, this is why it sort of made the headlines. And Daniela Westbrook was sort of saying he's gone too soon. I'm absolutely gutted. I'm sure lots of other people who worked with him will realise what a superstar he was. He was also, I would tell you favourite, he also appeared on Celebrity Big Brother, if I remember rightly. And apparently what happened, he fell from a great height at a warehouse. And tragically is no longer here.
Yeah, I've seen plenty of tributes going out to him from people like Nadia Essex and other reality TV stars. Eve, do you ever watch Gogglebox with him, or you, Megan?
No.
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
It's really sad. As Gogglebox type of show that just kind of comes on. Yeah, it seemed like a nice guy, nice family.
Very bubbly.
Really sad. I feel really, as well as obviously feeling horrible for the family, I feel really horrible for his colleagues.
Yeah.
Like, what a traumatic event.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I hope they have support at work, especially from their employer.
It's really sad.
Eve, talk to me about the licence fee. I spoke about this earlier in the show. My legal advisor, Eborn, said that I should not be telling people to break the law by not paying the licence fee, so I won't repeat it. But what news do you have for us about the BBC licence fee?
So it could be £200 by 2028, but there is a question in The Sun, you know, as it goes up £10.50 next week, is it really worth it?
Well, yeah. Well, you tell me. Do you think it's worth it?
Not really, to be honest. When you can get Netflix, Prime, and, you know, the holy trinity of Prime, Disney and Netflix, you know, going back to the BBC feels like a bit of a poor relation sometimes. I'm not going to deny the documentaries are fantastic, but it's not worth paying £200 for.
It works out at 16 quid a month. That is literally the price of at least Netflix and Amazon together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can get a lot of the stuff that's on the BBC on other channels.
You can't get Strictly. You can't get Match of the Day. Megan, do you think it's worth paying?
I have it, I think.
You think you have the TV licence?
Because I live in shared house, but I don't
think you have it?
contribute.
Well, I'd like to send the police round.
That's the police, they're round the corner.
Yes, send the Rozzers round. We found one.
But I also don't watch Strictly or Match of the Day.
Right, fine.
I don't
here.
require the BBC. I listen to the radio.
Well, you're paying for that. That includes it. It's all
At
part of that.
work.
Oh, gosh. Eborn, would you pay?
Very simple, and I'll tell you what it is. I host and produce for the Royal Television Society their podcast, and I interviewed the great and good for the BBC, who started off, and the question has to be, do we need the BBC? What you have to do is to work out, in today's diseased information age, do we need a public broadcaster more than at any time ever? There's a cost element to that. And some of the programmes can be done by other channels, but certain things which are hard-hitting, which are not commercially viable in and of themselves, we need to find a different way of doing it.
That I completely agree with. And I think to lose the BBC altogether would be really sad. And I think as a news outlet, it's really fundamental to keep the balance in the UK press.
It is, but if you want truth, just come here to the Independent Republic of JJ. I only tell you the truth, only. Now, move on. Page 28, 29, double-page spread in The Sun. Headline, vile slurs about Kate. Death threats to Meg's enemies. Trolls who are proudly #Sussex Squad. So this is all about the Sussex Squad on social media. Who knows about the Sussex Squad? I'm too old for this.
I know about the Sussex
Fill me in,
Squad.
young
Right.
Eve.
Right, so Omid Scooby, who was the biographer for the Sussexes, has started a few hashtags and, you know, was a sort of central figure to the Kate conspiracy theories. Sussex Squad are people who support Meghan and Harry. Yeah. I'm just so tired of this. I'm tired of this rivalry. I think it's really sad that a woman with cancer had to be the adult in the room. While everyone was saying she had a BBL, and, you know, it just says a lot. And I don't know how much Meghan and Harry have had, you know, a hand in the social media stuff themselves. I highly doubt that they've been sitting there typing out hashtags. But, you know, the implication isn't good, and I just think it needs to stop.
I totally agree with you. Let's end on a high note. Eborn, this one is right up your street.
What do you mean right up my street?
Fish getting high on coke. Yeah, right. Just tell them what's going on.
I'll tell you what's going on. This is all about polluted water again and so on and so forth. And what they're saying is that every fish and marine animal is full of cocaine, they say, as sewage spills into the UK seas. This is apparently some research. So we were talking about salmon earlier. I was telling you about the glorious things that we used to find in the Thames. Well, now these fish are basically, because of the pollution that we're doing, high on coke.
Wait, so what? People are flushing cocaine down the drain?
It does seem... It's a strange story, this, isn't it?
That's a joke.
No, I'm assuming it urine.
Yeah, it's true.
Oh.
That's how, like, it's not like people are flushing their contraceptive pill down the drain. We've known about this phenomena for a while because we've known that fish, I don't know, I think I read a story that it's responsible for men's reducing sperm count. There's so much contraceptive pill in the water. I think I read that.
I've heard about that
no
as
one,
well.
Yeah, no one quote me. You might have to.
Oh, no, it's
Google
true.
that.
As you know, I present a series called Fake or Fact, and we look at these stories and you dig a bit deeper.
Was that
we need to dig a bit deeper.
We need to dig deeper. I'll tell you what, Eborn, I would imagine that the fish in your area have very high.
They have really good dealers, absolutely.
I bet they do.
It's awful.
I bet they do. I'm only joking. I'm only joking. Well, thank you, Cabinet. It's been
it's an absolute delight.
That is all from me tonight. You've been watching The Independent Republic of Mike Graham. Thank you to my wonderful Cabinet, and I'll see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. only on Talk TV. Good night.